Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
And welcome back, everyone, to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. It's a podcast where we are breaking down and celebrating the film Young Frankenstein. It's a Gene Wilder film, hence the name. Young Frankenstein is our season one. We're breaking that down one special hamper for socks and poo-poo underwear at a time. I'm Alan Sanders. I'm your host.
And I'm Walt Murray, your co-host.
And joining us again, who was with us not too many weeks ago, we brought him back because we loved his commentary and thought it'd be nice to cap out the movie with a friendly voice. We've got Dave D'Alessandro joining us. Dave, welcome back.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
It's wonderful to have you here with us on this The Wilder Ride as we begin to wrap this up. And where there's been so much depth, Walt, in these minutes, the last couple of minutes, it's where we're kind of finishing things up and there's not as much maybe happening on screen, but there's a lot of fun and watching kind of the happy ending finally evolve.
Yeah, and you know, we kind
That's well put.
Yeah. Yeah, very.
There's a couple of happy endings.
Well, and it's interesting because, you know, we'd kind of talked about how 10, 12 minutes out, things really kind of started to rush. And they started really going through this stuff kind of too fast, I think, in some ways, to get to the end. But now you kind of have a calmer scene. Things are really kind of wrapping up in a more orderly manner, I guess, and a way that you can really appreciate.
These last 4 or 5 minutes, actually this week, to kind of cap it out, has finally felt like, okay, we've gotten past the warts and the flaws of where they were kind of jumbling things, and we realized looking at the script that they were sort of making things up on the fly. They realized things that worked on paper weren't working, and they had to kind of reshuffle things around and put the camera in creative places to let us know, oh, they're on the castle. Well, no, they're not. Now they're in the woods. No, they're not. No, now we've reached the climax. The monster is speaking, the townsfolk have been turned around, and now we're in the middle of a honeymoon suite scene, but we don't know what happened to everybody just yet. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and set the table for where we are today on this minute 104. We have, at the very beginning of the scene, we continue with Inga singing from inside the bathroom as she's getting ready, but she's singing that very familiar tune that seems to be having an effect on Dr. Frankenstein. We will then end with Dr. Frankenstein approaching the bed with Inga now tucked in bed, almost as if now he's become the monster, but there's a great nugget that happens right in between. Apparently, we also might see a New York apartment where Elizabeth must now have gone back home to. So let's start off. Yes. Dave, when you were last with us, we were chatting about the Dr. Frankenstein losing his, gets knocked out, and, oh, doctor, I feel so terrible, was what Inga was saying about, the monster, and, we had the kissy scene.
Oh, yeah. How can I give you some peace?
Yes, how can I bring you some calm in this moment of need? So you had a couple of really cool minutes of watching what we think is now the true start of that relationship, that Dr. Frankenstein had no idea really that Inga was starting to have a growing affection to him. So it's kind of nice to bring you back to see that affection does lead, in fact, to the honeymoon night.
That is correct.
That's the insight that we brought you back for.
That is why we have Dave on the show.
Well, sometimes brevity is, considered...
brevity is the soul of wit, as Shakespeare once said.
Hey, there you go.
I'm whipping out my Shakespeare.
It's certainly not a device to enhance the memory.
See, that's my problem. I just figured it out. The monster wins the girl by whipping out his Schwanstucker. I don't win anything because I whip out my Shakespeare. I heard the word spear. I thought that was what you wanted.
Yeah, well,
Like, no, not that. No.
The heart gets what the heart wants.
It's too complicated. I don't understand it. Like, there you go. That explains my love life.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we do start off really at the very beginning here, which I do love. The fact that we just talked about this, Walt, in the last minute with our guest yesterday, Crystal Beth, that this scene that still kind of is that not really the freeze frame, but that moment where we see so many elements of this entire movie captured at once on screen. The popped open collar, the stovetop hat the top hat from the song and dance, the mirror from the bedroom, the fact that he's in Victor Frankenstein's bedroom. We hear the Transylvanian lullaby being sung. It's a nice moment here as we begin to then bridge into what they do through the entire film. I know our audience is getting sick of us talking about the pendulum shift, but just when we feel like, okay, it's kind of getting, there's something that there's an effect, the music, it's now we go all of a sudden to a New York apartment.
Yeah, it fits this movie.
It does. Because it's totally unexpected.
Much like the song and dance routine at the end of Blazing Saddles, sort of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We have another moment of
typical Mel Brooks.
Sort of not breaking the fourth wall exactly, but sort of what would you call that? Kind of an anachronistic type of shift of scene, let's say.
Yeah, because now all of a sudden, I don't think I'm in Transylvania anymore, and I don't even think I'm in 1930 for just this moment.
Yeah, he's reading the New York Times.
The Wall Street Journal, actually. Yeah, the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, is that it?
So he's got a modern, basically, although it's been around for a while, but it looks like how it looks now because, right. I mean, he's in, I think, New York. I think they've gone back home. She's gone back. Apparently she's the money. We found out that she's the financier, so she must have all the money anyway. So she's taken her husband now. I mean, he looks like he's comfy in bed reading the stock report and the business report. He's got his glasses on. Frankenstein's monster is
a nice touch.
I mean,
the reading glasses are great.
He's settled in.
Yeah, and she's got the Bride of Frankenstein hair.
Yeah, which we're going to see in just a second. So, Walt, when you first saw this in the many multiple rewatchings, to me, it's still funny just visually to see Frankenstein's creature propped up in bed, sort of like Mr. Brady of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, I was going to say, he has just basically settled into regular old mundane everyday life. He's longer...
He's been married for 40 years already now.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it looks like.
Over the course of one night. Well, you know what it could be? He could have gotten some of the boringness of everyday life inherited from Dr. Frankenstein.
That is true.
In his brain.
Well, they had the transference, and they obviously some of his personality may have come over along with some of the evening of the spinal fluid levels to give him, I guess, a more sophisticated brain.
Well, and it's funny that he has, he like perfectly fits the dad look here because he's got the robe on, he's got the white t-shirt, he's reading the newspaper, he's got the reading glasses, bald head, and he really fits the middle-aged dad hanging out in the evening kind of look.
Right. And that's
the pajamas on. Yeah. The pajamas are great too. It's got kind of a leopard print to it, which is very unusual type of print, but there you go.
The difference now is that he'd be laying in bed reading his cell phone.
He'd have either the iPad open or he'd be like, checking social media. But you know what? But checking the stocks, that seems like a dad thing.
Seating position though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Same propped up in bed. And he even looks like he's bored. It's like, oh my God, my wife is just nagging me. She's talking about, we got to talk about the lines coming out of the room. Madeline Kahn delivering the lines about the special hampers that she's bought.
Did you see? I put a special hamper in the bathroom just for your shirts, and the other one is just for socks and poo-poo undies.
One just for your shirts, and one for your socks and your poopy. I gotta get the exact
your poo-poo undies.
Your poo-poo underwear. Your poo-poo underwear. I mean,
one for shirts, another one for socks and poo-poo undies.
It's awesome. It is so funny.
It's all in the delivery. It's hysterical.
Yeah, and again,
was that actually in the script? I'm sure you got the script in front of you. Was that in there?
Yes. In fact, I want to get to this because they shifted some things around because the way it was supposed to play out is we're supposed to see her constantly talking to him in the bathroom. And what I don't like about what the script does, because after that long monologue, after talking to the townsfolk, he's back to just doing the monster through the door, which I hate. That they would have gone back to that, and I love that they reworked it.
Yeah, they're going backwards because he just went through that long speech about to the townsfolk, and now he just resorted to just a couple of grunts.
Right.
I mean, I know that's they're going for the joke, and that's the whole point of it.
Right. It
seemed kind of jarring.
It's like, okay, now you're just a regular dad, and your answer to everything is
Well, and I like how he doesn't really actually say anything. He just gives a look.
There's a bit more inflection than that. It is kind of a the first one, anyway.
What she's supposed to say here, and I'll go through it very quickly, and It's supposed to start off with Elizabeth saying, "Darling, I hope you didn't find Daddy's little party too boring. He did it just for you, and he meant so well. Tell me you liked it." Now, you hear that, but it's supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to see her and only hear him through the door going, "Mmm." And then she says, "I know Mummy's just a scatterbrain without a serious thought in her head, but you love her just a little bit, don't you?" "Mmm. I'm ready for bed, sweetheart. Almost done." The bathroom door opens and the monster steps out. He is dressed in elegant silk pajamas and a handsome robe. Monster, mmm. Elizabeth gets into bed and waits for him, saying, "Did you see? I put a special hamper in the bathroom just for your shirts. The other one is for your socks and your poo-poo undies." Then the monster goes, mmm. He gets into bed, turns out the table lamp. Elizabeth, "Still happy you married me?" Mmm. "Love me oodles and coodles?" Mmm. "So this is what it's like to be completely happy." Mmm. Lights out. So I kind of like
I
how
can
they...
imagine the camera zooms in on his face and it kind of, what's that called when you go like the iris out? Everything fades to black. It zooms in on someone's eye.
Yeah, no, they don't. Actually, they just say a screen wipe back to Inga and Freddy. So they completely, and Walt, this is where I applaud whoever made the decision on the set to flip the room, to have her in the bathroom giving us just voiceover, seeing his reaction, realizing he's sort of become the hen-picked husband who's just leave me alone. I'm trying to read the paper. And then she's all in. Yeah. She's still all in. And it was, to me, a wonderful little throwback to Bride of Frankenstein now, because she truly is the Bride of Frankenstein. We don't need to have the married line.
Yes, yeah, she is.
She's got the hair. I don't know where it came from. We saw it had turned white, but it was down. But now it's all up in the beehive do, the
Marge
style.
Simpson.
Yeah, the Marge Simpson beehive. And
I think it was back in minute 93 when the monster busted in through the window. She screamed really loud.
Yes.
It was at the very next scene where he's carrying her off and her hair has that silver streak running through it.
Yep, and so it's obviously it's there for forever now. She's forever got the blue.
She is the Bride of Frankenstein,
and exactly like the movie. What I love is how she so plays with this role of being, because there's a scene in the actual Bride of Frankenstein where she does the hiss, where she goes,
"Oh yeah,"
there's like almost a cat hiss.
Sounds like a cat.
Yeah, almost. What's funny?
And then does she sashay across the room with sort of a jazzy?
Oh, yeah.
Maneuver.
Before we get there, though, Walt, and I don't know if Dave, if you did this with headphones, we talked about several minutes back when the monster was in chains. And we talked about from the audio editing, it was really weird that when the monster, after killing Rudy the guard, rips all of these chains off of his neck and drops them. And when he drops them, it's not chains dropping, it's the electricity we heard earlier from the lab.
Right.
So we heard electric, and we say, why did the sound designers, why did they put electrical current back in a scene? We just decided, well, every time Frankenstein kind of shows his life, like he's coming to life, he's not going to be put down, and he's not going to, maybe that's what that's supposed to represent. If you listen to Madeline Kahn when she does the it sounds like they took that same electrical noise but only sped it up so it's a little higher pitch. But it doesn't sound like a cat hiss, it sounds like electrical hiss.
Yeah,
and it's also, they also didn't sync it up precisely. The sound comes in just slightly.
It's a little off
before she does the sort of the mouth movement. Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange. It's just a
just
little bit,
just barely,
just a little bit off.
But what I love is after doing the whole cat thing, then she does exactly what you were saying, Dave. She gets that sort of like. I don't know, the little happy in her eyes, the seductive, like
bedroom
she is.
Eyes.
Oh yeah, big time. Like she is on the prowl. It literally starts to prowl across the room.
Well, I love that she flings that shoe,
kicks her shoes off in the air.
She's playing. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. She does like a sort of a cymbal. What would you call that? The jazzy.
Yeah, it's
a hi hat and a cymbaling.
And she's singing it like she's making the noise. She's doing her own little, vocal. And now here's what I will tell you.
That made me laugh so hard. I mean, I was cracking up just from that noise. And then as you said, he kicks off her shoes in this sort of silly way. And again, I was on the ground rolling, laughing so hard.
I'm laughing in studios. We've got it looping. It's not in the script at all that she would have done any of this. This was all Madeline Kahn working with and being allowed to have some fun on the set. The whole, not only kicking her shoes off, but then she turns around, kicks her butt out, licks her thumb, and goes, yeah. like touches her own butt, like, this is hot.
Yeah. And
Distinguished match.
Yeah, and then they go to the monster's face, and that's when he's like, okay, I got my hands full here.
Yeah, right to the camera, like, oh boy, women, right?
Well,
but going back 1 second, when she kicks off her shoes, if you look closely, she kicks off the right shoe, and it flies up in the air, and then she kicks her left foot, but there's no shoe on it. And then the shoe falls back down and almost hits her left foot.
Yeah, I noticed that.
The one shoe flies up and then almost hits the other foot.
And even, everything about it is just, it's so funny in terms of just the choreography. And after the little touching her butt going, she does this sort of like little pose with her fingers,
Jazz
like,
hands type of thing. Yeah.
It's
like, huh? Like, what's that move? It's got to have some kind of name for that.
All I can tell you is a woman this playful, she's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she may be a handful.
She's a handful.
But I like how Frankenstein's creature, in the uncomfortable scene that we had to work our way through, was definitely in charge and wanted what he wanted. Now it's the stereotypical husband who's like, oh, dear Lord, can't you just leave me alone? I'm reading the paper.
Wall Street Journal and go
He's
to
already
bed.
bored to death.
It's just like, and she's like,
I went to one night.
And she's like, I am not done with this Schwanstucker. I am all in, baby.
Well, and she just...
Mel Brooks is trying to say something about the Institute of Marriage, how it's exciting at the beginning, and then before you know it, you're already bored to tears.
I mean, the knowing nod the creature makes right after she does her little tss, and then jazz hands or little dance move. He looks and he starts to nod. He starts to nod almost like, yeah, this is kind of what I got myself into. It's almost like the acknowledgement of, I don't know if he's unhappy. I almost feel like, well, this beats what I used to do.
Right. I agree.
I think the expression on his face, you can almost project your own dissatisfaction of your own marriage onto the face. So you see whatever's going on in your own life in his face.
Maybe. I hope. Well, I'm hoping so because I'm seeing
for those who are dissatisfied with their marriages.
You see it I just see a guy who's like, he knows the routine. Like, I almost get the sense that this is the routine, that this is a daily occurrence now. We really have no idea how long it's been. How long did it take to plan the wedding for Inga and Freddy? And so they had to come all the way. They said at the beginning of the movie, it took 2 weeks to travel from Transylvania because Herr Falkstein took him 2 weeks to travel from Transylvania to visit the doctor. So you got to imagine it would take Elizabeth and the monster at least 2 weeks. So that's assuming charges get dropped about Rudy being killed and, everything's all forgiven. You got to pay the bail money. Maybe, you got to go to court, get the papers all taken care of. But then they had their marriage. She's the bride now of Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's creature. So we have no idea how much time has passed, but I get the sense that this has been the routine since settling into New York.
I think so. It definitely has that feel of a couple who, and particularly him, who are very used to each other.
Yeah, I see that.
I cannot stop watching Madeline Kahn.
She's great.
Because she's not only hot, I mean, there's no doubt she's hot, but she's so funny and so playful. And you're like, that's the kind of person I want to hang out with. She's not taking herself too seriously. Yeah. She's not worried about looking stupid or doing something. She wants to play. She wants to have fun. Yeah. She wants to be just having a good time and laugh. And those are the most fun people to hang out with.
And I guess this is kind of the textbook definition of chewing the scenery. Is that right?
She's just chewing the scenery.
She is just
I think
really... just enjoying it and just kind of takes over the whole scene. She is such an amazing
Well, compared to him
too.
Just sitting in the bed, sort of motionless, it's a nice, what'd you call it? It's a nice counterpoint to his stillness, is her animation.
Yeah, it provides a nice contrast between the two of them.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and, speaking of contrast, I love what they've done lighting-wise between these two scenes.
Yeah.
Because this is so bright. It's almost white, as if now we've had this role reversal, because now when we cut back at toward the end of the minute and Freddy, we're back to Victor Frankenstein's room that's now Freddy's room, it's exactly opposite. it is all dark with very little highlight. In this shot with Elizabeth and the monster, it's all bright. I mean, the only dark spot, very little dark, is the fireplace entrance, and his jammies are a little dark to help, have him stand out on the white pillows, the white bed headboard, the white sheets, or the light colored sheets. Definitely a contrast there as well.
No question. His white bald head.
I mean, she's dressed in white.
Yeah.
You could actually see a bit of his the forehead. You can see a bit where the makeup is applied to it. The sort of the very top of the forehead. It's starting to come loose a little bit. But at this point, they were probably just trying to go home. So they're like, good enough.
Yeah, we're not going to make a whole new head for him.
Yeah, the shading doesn't quite match. So
nobody's going to notice anyway.
Now, when at the very beginning of the minute, we're still in the room back in Transylvania, and that's where we end the minute, is in that same room in Transylvania. But the lights are dark, the fire is still lit. Obviously, at some point, Inga's come to bed, and Freddy hasn't moved yet until now, which is a little weird. So how long was he standing there in some of that trance before he decided to do the whole zombie walk?
Yeah, hard to tell. But he gets completely captured by that song, and it
must have triggered something in his brain to
it does, and
turn you slightly monsterific or something.
Monsterific. Yeah, it really grabs his whole brain.
But okay, because I'm going to point this out. She had to have come to bed at some point. He was standing where he was, still in his tuxedo, because he was entranced. We saw the tuxedo shirt. He had taken the jacket off. He had undone his tie. The collar had popped.
He was about to throw his hat, but hold your hat. Hold on to your hats. Put it back on.
Right around second 54, 55, when we come back, he's got his jammies on. He's still got the top hat on. But when did he have presence of mind to put the jammies on and yet go back to the trance to go back to bed?
Are you saying there could be a continuity issue?
Well,
here?
I don't know if it's because my story continuity.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there's something we're missing here. Like, I get it. It works. It works in the film because we want to just see what did this effect have on him, and we're going to get the joke at the end of tomorrow. But it is interesting that he was in such a trance he couldn't finish getting undressed, and now that we're back, he's got his jammies on and he's doing the whole zombie walk, which this is your typical Frankenstein's creature walk.
That's right.
Yes, I've actually got a note about the Frankenstein walk with the arms out. If we could wait till the next minute, I'll fully delve into it.
Okay, well, we'll just say this. This is the first time we've seen the classic Frankenstein walk. Because even in this movie, the only time we had sort of the lumbering with his arms out, it made sense, is when Gene Wilder or Dr. Frankenstein was taking his pet for a walk for the first time, and he was trying to hold him up, and so his arms were kind of up only for like on top of the doctor's shoulders.
Right, he was supported.
He never walked like this.
That's not the classic pose, though. We all know that. Come on.
Right. So this is the first time we ever get that last allusion back to the original Frankenstein.
Yes, absolutely. And it is interesting how dark that room is. And you had mentioned the two contrasts, the other room being this light. You can't even see parts of this room.
There is a fire going, but it's
just enough to
light up the room.
It's just enough to give us some highlight and silhouette, which we need because I like it. We're now wondering, did something more nefarious happen during the it wasn't the transfusion. What do they call it? The
transposition, what do they call it?
Siberian
Railroad,
the Trans-Siberian Orchestra,
Transmorgify, I believe it was.
The transmission,
transmutation,
transubstantiation.
I think 5000.
No, please, any but that.
The transference.
The transference.
I know if we said enough.
Very good.
That's it.
Burt Reynolds and his Trans Am? No.
And everybody in the audience is like, golly, these guys are morons.
What the hell is wrong with them? They're yelling, transference. Well, it makes me wonder, did something else happen with the transference? Because we've got a brightly lit scene. Frankenstein's creature is obviously not just tamed, he's henpecked tamed, right? He is the middle-aged husband, just the whatever. He's got his life, and it's all good. There's nothing dark. There's nothing ominous. There's nothing dark about it. Now all of a sudden we're like, oh, wait a minute. If his life is so good, if the creature is like so mundane, what's happening back here? And the fact that it's this dark, it does bring back one more time that foreboding that, hey, don't forget, we made a monster picture.
And that is kind of what I was thinking here when that transition was made. The first time I remember thinking, uh-oh, what's about to happen? Like I thought he had become the evil monster.
Right.
And so it really is a great kind of bait and switch that they pull here right at the end to make you wonder, okay, is this a comedy or is this a horror movie?
Didn't know if Dave was going to jump in or not.
Dave jumped out the window.
I was lost in thought. Quiet contemplation.
He's thinking of more trans stuff.
Two more trans words. We do, just before the minute runs out, just as Freddy is approaching his side of the bed, I like the way they lit this scene. Obviously, this is not the firelight that's hitting her. It's not flickering, but maybe it's coming out of the bathroom. I don't know, but we see Inga propped up on her side of the bed, waiting for her new husband now to come to bed. And it's just a nicely lit shot. He's still pretty much all in shadow as he's approaching the bed, but we see that bright light kind of on her.
And that is a really neat shot. And it's great how they framed her face with that light and shadowed the rest of her. That is really a great shot.
It puts the attention just before we move into tomorrow on, well, what is this relationship going to be? We just got done seeing the mundane. Oh my God, he's like every night, but she's, we got the hot to trot Elizabeth who can't get enough. What's going to happen here? So I don't want to spoil the monster walk because we're going to get into even more of that tomorrow. So Dave, before we wrap up this minute and get ready for minute 105 tomorrow, which I'm hoping we can get you back tomorrow. I know you said you wanted to save it for tomorrow. Do you have anything else for this minute?
Since this is the last shot of Peter Boyle in the movie, just some shout outs to him. I know he's passed, but you have to shout pretty loud, I guess. He was great in an episode of The X-Files where he played a fellow named Clyde Bruckman. He was sort of had psychic ability, helped solve a murder. It was an excellent episode it was season 3. Maybe you could check that out. You'll enjoy that. Well, he was also terrific at Laszlo in Where the Buffalo Roam. It's really a strange sort of Hunter Thompson movie.
He was great in that
from
movie.
The 70s. Bill Murray's in it as well.
Yeah, that has come up a couple of times with guests who have talked about Peter Boyle and his career in that movie. Ironically, you talk about how we've run into guests this week, Walt, who have never seen Young Frankenstein until preparing for being on this podcast.
It's amazing.
I've never seen Where the Buffalo Roam.
It's worth seeing. It's a very good movie. Dave, have you watched that?
There's a lot of parallels with Fear and Loathing.
Yes.
About a third of it, or even a half of it, is basically that movie.
It is, but it's worth watching, and it's a good movie. I think you'd really like it. There are definitely some parts of it that you're like, okay, I've watched enough buffaloes roaming. Let's move on to the next thing. But it's good. And Peter Boyle is, again, he's a bright spot. I'm really reaching to find a movie or a TV show that Peter Boyle was in where he wasn't great.
He's never not great.
He's been good. Whether he plays the blue-collar heavy, whether he plays the stereotypical conservative bad guy, or he plays the villain, or he plays the good guy, or he plays just somebody who's sort of lost in the world, he's fantastic.
And it's funny that he bookends his career with playing the Frankenstein monster and then playing Frank Barone.
Frank, one of the last things he played.
Yeah.
One thing I want to give a shout out to, I had totally forgotten he was in this movie, and thanks to our listeners group, someone posted Johnny Dangerously.
That's right.
And I forgot he was one of the mobsters in Johnny Dangerously.
Yep, he sure was. And he had a great mobster look.
Mm-hmm. He had a good heavy look.
He did.
I think, still one of my favorite, maybe because I've always been drawn more to sci-fi, I still think Outland is just a great, underrated, sort of that B-sci-fi movie with Sean Connery. Yeah. It is awesome, where he plays the heavy, he plays the kind of like the boss, or the guy in charge in this mining, I don't want to call it a colony.
Yeah, kind of a colony, kind of a
call it a colony
enclave.
Yeah, I know. But basically that he doesn't care. We're not doing trans again.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
But if you've never seen Outland, I would highly recommend watching the movie. And then I want to put this little nugget in your head. Imagine that Outland is a side story to the Alien universe, because the backgrounds, some of the actual set decoration pieces and choices were basically repurposed from Alien, so it makes it look like maybe this is where the Nostromo was bringing their cargo to at some point, because it looks like these two movies exist in the same universe.
That's interesting.
And if you've never seen Outland, check it out.
You know, I think people had a hard time taking that movie seriously because of Zardoz.
What had come out just before?
Yeah, it was a couple years before, and it was so terrible. And Sean Connery, of course, played Zardoz. And it was a nightmare. I mean, it's such a bad movie. And then, his next foray. It is. It's just everything about that movie was awful. And then his
everything
next
about
sci-fi
that movie was awful.
But it's so worth watching. I mean, if you haven't watched Zardoz, you got to see it. I think it's on YouTube for free. So that just tells you how bad it is. But I think that the disaster that was kind of influenced people's opinion of him as a sci-fi actor. And I think that hurt that movie.
Could be. It could be that's what it was. So as we begin, I guess, to wrap this up, anything else on the Peter Boyle shout-outs that you wanted to give, Dave, before we wrap up this minute?
Yeah, I'm just going to mention Johnny Dangerously. You just did. He has that great scene when he's in the bathroom and the bomb goes off.
No double entendre there.
Nope.
I wish I could quote that movie more often, especially that scene, but very rarely do you have the opportunity to.
What's awesome is if you want, you can always use Roman Moroni because he never can swear correctly. You can quote him all day long, even on radio, and you're not going to get in trouble.
How's tricks, Moroni?
What are you doing here, icehole?
Hey, can a fellow enjoy a night out gambling with some of his pals?
Don't bullshit me. Search the summoner batch.
Hey, we're clean, Moroni. You see, I don't bear no grudges, even though you boys have been muscling in on my territory. Why do you do that, Moroni?
It's a free country, icehole.
They're clean, boss.
Okay, you and the rest of your bastages can gamble. But don't try no fargan trick, otherwise you wind up with your bells in a sling.
What a mouth on that guy.
Dear bastages, I hope I got some of you.
Sneaky bastard.
They opened that crate.
I think I saw that movie on. Sorry, go ahead.
They open the crate, and it's a Roman Moroni like figure with the Tommy gun. He's like, and then there's the note, "Dear bastages." He can't even spell the right words. He says bastages.
Yeah, somebody dictated it and still spelled it wrong.
I think it's an underrated. I remember a lot of people thought, "Oh, Michael Keaton had a stinker with this one." Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I agree with you, and it was kind of a cult classic among me and my friends because we watched that probably 10 times.
You talk about movies you quote. I didn't even realize how often I quote Johnny Dangerously. Yeah. I mean, even the whole when the fake priest was leading him out and giving him the parts to the machine gun. He's like, "E pluribus unum." We missed the bus. You cut the bus.
Yeah.
They got the bus. And he's just trying to talk all this Latin, and it's just nonsense. But it's
total nonsense.
It's awesome.
And that's a movie I haven't watched in a long time. I need
Magnum cum laude. The radio's too loudy. So, wow, we've just extended this ending a lot more than I thought I would, but only because we're talking about a lot of the films that Peter Boyle was part of outside of just Young Frankenstein.
Well, and we close out the work of Madeline Kahn in this
do.
movie as well. And again, she was just fantastic. And like I said before, early on, this was the movie I think for me that cemented Madeline Kahn as just a great actress. And it's probably the first movie I really remember her being in. And everything she ever did after this, I kind of compared to this movie. But she, going from Blazing Saddles to this movie, two very different characters, very different skill sets as an actress, and she just
apart from the singing.
What's that?
Apart from the singing.
Apart from the singing, but she just blows you away in both of them.
And even then, she had to force herself to sing off key.
Yeah, which
was hard.
I could have trained her.
It's hard to do.
So.
Not when for somebody who is as classically trained, which is great because she gets to show it off here in this film.
Yeah,
that operatic training that she had. I will say that Blazing Saddles was the first movie I ever saw Madeline Kahn in, and she will always be Lily von Stupp to me. She was just once again a character, an actress who's beautiful, but not so caught up in herself and her looks to say, "I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be silly. I'm going to be goofy. I'm going to put on an accent. I'm going to sing off key. I'm going to have fun." And my whole life I've surrounded myself. Maybe that's the kind of impact I've had. Maybe that's why I've surrounded myself with nuts around me all the time, because I was introduced to Blazing Saddles, the very first movie. Well, but I love those I love those personalities.
And that's kind of one of those chicken and the egg things. Do you love that movie because you're warped, or are you warped because you
love that?
Saw that
I
movie?
don't think I'm warped. But I do think...
Well, let's take a poll.
Well, hey now. I do think that being exposed... There are worse comedies to be exposed to than Mel Brooks comedies, especially the older Mel Brooks, like Blazing Saddles, like Young Frankenstein. For me, even as when I was young...
History of the World.
Yeah, History of the World, Part 1.
World. Yeah.
To have the smart humor along with the slapstick, along with the visual, I think that's why today I don't like a lot of the current comedies because they go so much for the fart jokes only. They go for the pratfalls only. It's like, well, where did the fun writing go? Where did the comedy go that you take a while to set up the joke and you have fun with the double entendre and the play on words? And I don't see that nearly as much.
Nobody has the patience anymore to set anything up. You just want to go for the joke after joke. It's a lot like sitcoms where the audience is laughing after every single line. And again, I think I mentioned it the last time I was on. It drives me up the wall. It's so aggravating. But
yeah, I mean, not every line is meant to be funny.
We mentioned early on, I don't remember how far along we were, that Gene and Mel did their best work together.
I think so. And this was the final. This was the hat trick of the two of them working together. They stayed friends, but I think this was the culmination of these two. This is the best Gene Wilder, Mel Brooks movie together in terms of the cinema. I still like Blazing Saddles more because I'm a Western guy.
Yeah.
But if I had to rank them in terms of the cinema aspects, like the literary, the artsy aspects, this movie is definitely much higher up than Blazing Saddles.
I agree.
And I can do that. I can divorce my brain from myself.
Yeah.
Wait, what? But I can look at this and say, okay, cinematically, this is as close as you get to a comedy masterpiece. Like this is like the Orson Welles of comedy. I still like Blazing Saddles more because it appeals to me more. Well, think about it. Just the framing, the shots, the angles, the lighting, the cinematography, I would argue. And we actually had Paul Sullivan who said so many of these shots you could have seen in an Orson Welles picture.
Yeah, and one of the things that Sully said when he was
in black and white as well, so you have that sort of feeling to it to begin with.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And Sully had mentioned when he was on that you can watch this without the sound, and it's hard to tell what kind of movie it is.
Right.
You know that there are comic moments, but you realize that this is
But you could very easily walk in on somebody in the room if they had the sound on and think they're watching a horror picture.
No question.
So
and there are actually
I
scenes from the movie that are...
Yeah.
Great horror movie scenes.
I think, and again, we're certainly closing out. I'm glad you did that, Dave. We're sort of closing out and remembering the careers of a couple of people we're not going to see any more minutes of. I just think that's a testament to this film that we're calling it a film. That's not just a movie. You know, we talked about your dad always going, it's just a movie. It's
just a movie.
It's a film. It's a really good film. And I think Crystal Beth, who was with us yesterday and the day before, said, I wish they had showed this to us in film school, because she said, we got shown so many examples that were supposed to be like good, that were really bad movies, and then we didn't get shown this. And she's like, I wish we had been shown this in film school. And I would argue, if you're if you're just listening to the podcast and you've got an interest in film, go back and watch this in terms of lighting, cinematography, framing, what's on the screen, where does the camera move, when does the camera not move? And you can learn a whole lot about
taking
filmmaking.
your time to let the scene develop and not be in a rush.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, in the classes that I took in college, the 10 or 15 movies that we watched and analyzed, none of them were as good as this movie. Not one of them. And not one of them that was a comedy, not one of them that was a drama. This is an amazing movie. Wow. Anyway, we still got one more minute.
And we well, technically two, but one more, because the last minute really is the credits.
It is.
And we got something special, but we're going to, you know what, Dave wanted to hold off till tomorrow to talk about something special about the Monster Walk. We've got a special, we'll drop a little bomb toward the end of tomorrow to explain how we plan to close out minute 106 the following week. But we still got to finish up this week. So we're at the end of minute 104. We've got minute 105. Dave, I'm assuming we can get you back for tomorrow to wrap up what is basically the movie, save for the final credits.
Yes, I believe I could come back tomorrow.
Excellent.
By the way, before we sign off, Madeline Kahn, the movie Clue, also gold. Every scene.
You know, I saw it a while ago, like when it first came out, and that was the whole gag. If you go back to the theater, you might get one of 2 or 3 alternate endings.
Right.
And I thought that was a cool idea, but I never went back to watch. And apparently, I need to go back and rewatch it. But didn't they release a Blu-ray or a DVD that has all 3 of the endings?
Yes, they did.
Or something. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 endings.
Even the original DVD had all 3 endings as well.
Did it? Okay. So I need to get it. It's been a long, long time since I've seen.
Well, and I would say that there are very few people who actually went back for a second showing.
I wonder why.
Because it was terrible.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I didn't like it. I really didn't. I didn't think it was that good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to end on a sad note. So let's say this. One of the movies we may get to in the next, I don't know, it won't be next season, but who knows when. But if you haven't had a chance to check it out, see her in the performance along with Marty Feldman in Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
And it is again one of those Gene Wilder movies that is not available anywhere. I can't seem to find that on Netflix or any of the other.
Well, maybe not any of the streaming services, but I'm sure you can order it from somewhere.
You can definitely order it.
It is really, really well done. I remember seeing that as a kid, going, "Oh my God, this Gene Wilder can't do anything bad. Everything he's in is funny." Because by that point I'd seen, of course, Willy Wonka, I'd seen Silver Streak, I'd seen Stir Crazy, and then all of a sudden I stumble across Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. I'm like, "Oh, it's that Gene Wilder guy. I kind of like him." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's funny too." So, we'll probably stumble across some that we look ahead of time and go, "Yeah, we're not going to dive into that movie." But I'm also looking forward to The Frisco Kid, which I have never seen.
Great movie.
I fully believe it is. I think I'm looking forward to when we get to it. So, all right. Well, Dave, anything else that you've got for this minute before we come back tomorrow?
I need to make a phone call, but I'll wait. I'll wait till you're done.
All right. Well, if you can, just before you take the call or make the call, can you tell everybody about Seinfeld Minute and your own sort of, it's not a movie by minute, it's a sitcom by minute, but it's a Seinfeld Minute. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes. Me and my girlfriend has been doing that for a couple of years now. SeinfeldMinute.com. The show is available there. You can subscribe with iTunes from the site. I just posted some of the blurbs that we take off, that we delete from the show, some of the additional comedies. I usually try to whittle the show down to around 20 minutes each. If we end up with a couple of extra funny little bits, I put them together as a collection of blurbs. And I'll post them separately. I just posted one recently. It's pretty funny stuff there. All the information is on the website. You can check that out at your convenience.
Excellent.
SeinfeldMinute.com.
Excellent. Walt, what about us? Where can people get more information on this Wilder ride?
Well, one place I'd encourage you to go is Patreon. Take a look at some of the options that we have there. It's patreon.com/The Wilder Ride. And there are some expenses that are associated with the show here, and we're happy to take care of those. But we would love to have you join us and be a part of that team. There are different levels of opportunity for you to join in and be a part of the show, so just browse through that. We're also going to have some content that we're going to put up on Patreon coming up here in the next few months. So you want
not even few months. We've got a great interview that we had with a biographer of Gene Wilder that we're going to put up there. We had a chance to interview him several weeks back, but we knew we had to finish this first, but we'll have a free sample of an interview with a biographer.
Yeah, and it is a great interview, and it was even insightful for both of us. There were certainly things about Gene and his life that we had no idea, and he clarifies some of the rumors and some of the other crazy stuff that are out there on the internets that may or may not be true.
Yeah, and that is an interview that's going to be coming up with Brian Mednick. If you haven't gotten a chance to get his book, go over to Amazon.com and just look it up, Brian Mednick, and that interview will be out probably mid-August, maybe right in time for, what's sad to say, the 2-year anniversary of the death of Gene Wilder. All right, well, that's going to wrap up Minute 104. Let's set the table for tomorrow. Tease you to come on back for Minute 105 as we basically wrap up all of the actual live action, because at the very end of the minute, we'll actually have credits roll, but we got to continue on with Dr. Frankenstein moaning as he gets into bed with Inga. Inga has a question for him about that whole transference, and we end with a model, as we started, of the castle, and we're slowly seeing the camera pull back from that castle on the hill as the credits begin to roll. But you got to come back tomorrow, Friday, the wrap-up of The Wilder Ride.
And what a ride it has been.
Ooh. And this one's for your socks and your poopy undies. Poopy undies.
I could have sworn that she improvised that line, but if it's in the script,
nope, it's in the script.
It just goes to show the strength that a good script can get you everywhere in the movie.
Yep. Hey, you throw poopy undies in there, it's always good.